But good afternoon, everybody, and thank you both Vincent and Tony for sharing your thoughts on We First, many of which I think we'll deeply reflect and see how we can all be part of this movement. So what is a We First society? Since mid-May last year, MCCY has been talking to many different people on this subject, academics, professionals, and community leaders, and we discovered that different people have different takes. Well, that diversity of thought in itself is valuable. Many also ask, who does the we refer to? And then does we first mean me second? Well, let me share my take on this through a story. So this is the time of the year when we are celebrating the achievements of all our students, and in my constituency of Tampines North, we have a lot of students who do very well. More than 1,000 students, so that means, 2 weekends, and we run these sessions back to back because you don't want too many of them, so they don't have to wait too long. After the presentation, I usually speak to the students to ask them if they were happy, if they felt proud of themselves. And on one afternoon, I spoke to one of my young residents, probably about 10 or 11 years old, and I asked him, do you feel proud of yourself? He said, yes. Did your mom tell you you're proud of you? He said, yes. And I said, are you happy? He said, yes. Then he fidgeted for a little bit, and then I could see he almost sort of summoned up all of his courage, and he said, Minister, can I tell you something? Actually, I'm not very happy. So then I was wondering, is it the food not nice? Certificate name wrong? What was it? He said, when the first few kids went up to receive their awards, everybody clapped really loudly. But then because I was in the middle, right? By the time it's my turn, people are talking among themselves, taking their photograph, they don't know do what. So I asked him, so what did you do about it? He said, I made it a point that after I receive my award, I will stay there and I will continue to clap for all the rest of the students until the last one got it. And he said, you know what? When I did that, I noticed that the people around me did that too. So, well done to him. And then you should ask me, what did I do about that? So I had a few more sessions to run. So the next session, and the ones after that, I told my residents the same story about how my 11-year-old resident felt. And I asked them, could all of you do me a favor and make it a point that we collectively, as a community, cheer for every single last kid until they are done? And that afternoon, we got the loudest cheers ever in that CC. But that is what We First means, by putting others before self, and when you do that, collectively, we are much better people, a much better community. So this simple story illustrates why We First is important and why putting we before me is always better. A society where we care for one another and we help each other to do well is a better society, where we can accommodate one another and live harmoniously, and where individuals feel supported by others and can thrive. A We First society underpins good governance, growth, and prosperity, because as human beings, we all exist in a social context, and in such a context, society flourishes when we work together and we seek to advance the interests of we, and thereby creating the best conditions for me. Like my young resident knew, the cheers won't be very loud if everybody just cheered for themselves. It's only when we cheer together for each other that's when we do better. And this is our Singapore story for over 60 years. We built a multicultural Singapore, with a national identity that does not replace our individual cultural identities, but builds on top of it. This is possible because each culture and community share a very strong we consensus to foster respect and harmony. And none of our communities push for the maximum interests of the individual communities, because that would be at the expense of others. And this in turn preserves the space for each ethnic community to pursue and to practice our culture and religion. Another example is how we emerged stronger from the COVID-19 pandemic. With a fast-track vaccine, a logical me-first response is, I don't want to get vaccinated because nobody knows whether there will be long-term effects. But thankfully, our society was able to adopt a we-first mentality where the majority of us got vaccinated so we could achieve herd immunity as a nation, open our borders, save lives and livelihoods, and more importantly, our actions protected those of us who could not get vaccinated because of medical reasons. Well, Vincent talked about a trade-off between getting ahead and getting together. Well, I think it may not be so binary. Rather, as the little story I shared illustrates, we get further ahead when we get together. Like how birds fly in formation, fly further and faster because they provide mutual uplift, we achieve greater success together with our collective strength. Well, as Mr. Bhavan thoughtfully observed in the Straits Times commentary last August, building a we-first society is the hardest policy to achieve. Not because we lack resources or legislative tools, but because it demands something deeper. A shift in how we relate to one another. The government will take the first step to provide a blueprint for change, but the movement only happens when each of us, every one of us, through our individual actions, turn these blueprints into reality. One way to build a we-first society is to create opportunities for people to interact. This deepens understanding and appreciation for one another in spite of our differences, and it fosters a certain genuine, authentic connection. Well, there was some good discussion on how this might look like in the morning panels, including a lot of playing of soccer, but we need to build social capital and social cohesion. And I also agree with Tony that we need to start from young, because when we grow up together, we can better identify with one another. For example, we have the MOE OBS Challenge Program, this is the photo you see there, where all the secondary three students not just learn to kayak or trek, but they also learn to work together with their watchmates who come from different backgrounds, different schools, and have different life stories. Another way to build a we-first society is for us to work together, government, private sector, citizens, to build our community and nation together. What we are experiencing, and perhaps you have experienced this too, is that meaningful participation creates meaningful connections. And when we contribute to build something, it becomes a part of us. Across Singapore, we are witnessing something encouraging, micro-communities forming their own support networks to uplift those who need an extra hand. So for example, in Yio Chu Kang, what you see here, a dozen residents prepare meals and organize activities for close to 40 seniors every month with food supplied by the local Hawkers Association. And stories like these remind us that community building is about a collection of our individual actions. It starts with people who see a need and they choose to act. We all have the capacity to initiate or support such efforts in our own spheres and in our own ways. It only takes a spark to create a movement. So, how might you spark a movement? And how can the government do better to create that spark in you? All these are some of the questions that I encourage us to reflect on and to discuss later. My last thought is that we have to make we first a way of life. This means nurturing a culture of other-centeredness, where we foster the instinct to think of others first and to extend kindness, to be kinder to one another. But how can we nurture this culture? Is it through friendly visual reminders, such as the Thoughtful Bunch, the cartoon characters that you see in our MRT trains, that encourages courteous behaviors on our commutes? Or through campaigns to encourage residents to give way and to show patience in shared spaces, such as at hawker centers or on the roads? Or perhaps you may have entirely different approaches that you might want to suggest. And I invite all of us to share our ideas and insights on how we can collectively nurture this culture of mutual care and consideration. To conclude, Most people think of Singapore's story over the past 60 years as the economic miracle that we are. But the other aspect of our success and what makes us exceptional was our ability to build a cohesive nation through our diversity, regardless of race, language, or religion. And for us to continue to stay exceptional in this changed world, we need to work together to nurture a we first society. One where we build bridges and not walls. One where we band together as a chorus and not just individual voices. One where we bring everyone along as one united people. In this way, we can then say that we are truly embodying the essence of our pledge. We, the citizens of Singapore. Because as my young resident intrinsically knew, we are better when we work together. And we work better together when we put we first. Thank you, and I look forward to our discussion.